Like, you do the Baldy breakdowns, and I love the Baldy breakdowns because it teaches me about football.
Yeah.
Didn't play at a high level like you. I don't know all the route concepts and the blocking formations, etc. Like, what I've learned is I've learned through Madden. I've learned through playing video games and watching and Troy Aikman and different people teaching me. I've been watching a lot of these JT O'Sullivan quarterback school videos, and I don't know if you're...
I know JT. Played in NFL Europe.
Yeah, play with the Niners.
Play with the Niners.
You know? And so,
we like JT.
I do too. And look, it's not the end-all, be-all. Like, everyone has different opinions.
Yes.
And he goes, this is how I interpret the stuff that I've seen in formations and stuff. And he doesn't know what they're telling them on the whiteboard. But the way that every week I watch these videos, in your videos, and it's the Brock Purdy, the anticipation, the pocket awareness, the footwork, the ability to climb in the pocket, drop back in the pocket, change the arm angles, the accuracy with the ball placement so that guys can catch it and turn upfield or miss blockers, the layered throws, the decision on where to go with the ball. Like, I'm watching this guy, and I'm like, and I hear all these people, we wouldn't do this if he was here, and he wouldn't do this. And I know it would look a lot worse in different situations, but the fundamental ability to play quarterback, he's just got it.
Yeah. He's just basically your average guy that's great at playing quarterback. That's Brock Purdy. Like, he's a religious guy, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's just your regular guy. Looks like a regular guy. You shake his hand, you talk to him. But last time I saw him before the Tampa game, he was talking about an ice cream parlor in Ames, Iowa. Like, if you try to do that to Peyton or Drew Brees or Brady before a game, like, somebody would chew your arm off.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that. Like, they're locked in. Like, this guy is so confident that, honestly, I don't think anything could knock him off. Like, remember, like, I was asking him about the throw. Remember the throw where he faked it to Ayuk and then he hit Kittle down the stretch? And Shanahan's like, he didn't even look. He already knew it was a touchdown. And, he I forget which game that was.
Jacksonville, right?
Was it Jacksonville?
Yeah. Down the sideline?
Yeah.
Right sideline? Yep, Jacksonville.
Yeah, so exactly. So I think he was faking Rayshon Jenkins. Maybe he was a safety on the play. But, like, he just did that to move the safety. But he didn't really have enough time because the pocket was closing in on him to be able to pull the ball back and then throw it to Kittle. But he did. And I thought that was like a Shanahan thing, like really pump him and then go outside. Like, because the route combination, kind of like this post wheel thing that teams attack that coverage with. But that was just him. That was him going, I can really get this safety to bite. That was all him.
Well, he is. And I see a lot of these elements of, like, him and CMC. So they do this option route thing. Now they do this. I'm getting real geeky here. But the guys, you're in shotgun, and McCaffrey's next to Brock. And then he starts to shuffle out.
Yeah.
And it's this new thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
And
it's a new motion.
It is, but at times JT O'Sullivan doesn't like it because it doesn't sync up downfield the way that he wants to with other route combinations. But he was saying that they were working all year right and left on the option route for CMC. But in this game in particular, you saw the big wheel route play that they hit with CMC. But he goes, they ran it 4 or 5 times and didn't throw to it until that one time that they did. And it just felt like something that they had been game planning for weeks leading up to this. Did you see that same thing on film?
I didn't see 4 or 5 option routes from Christian in the game, but I didn't look for it either.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe JT just saw it because, he knew that was coming. But, I'm not doubting it. But, like, they got Nick Morrow out there in space. Honestly, it's just a clear out. It's like clear out for LeBron. Let him go do his thing. That's all it was. It's basketball on grass in some ways. And so these clear outs, the way that they create space is, it's kind of next level. And it's, I was talking to Mike White, who's the backup quarterback in Miami last week, about this. And Mike's a very smart guy. He was a great baseball player, coming out drafted to play baseball. But he's watching Tua in the year that Tua's having, and so it's the first time he's been around Mike McDaniel. So what they do is, and Kyle is and Sean McVay, all these guys kind of think the same way. They're like, we're going to try this motion where you shift out like this. Yeah. Let's see how the defense reacts. Let's see how our defense reacts in practice. Let's draw it up on a board. Let's walk through it. Let's practice it. And let's see if we can get the reaction we want. And once we know of the reaction we're going to get, then we can counter off that action. And so you get the defense biting the way you want them to, And then it's almost like the play to Kittle last week for 33 yards that really got them going on the first drive. And they were like, okay, we know Hassan Reddick's out there, and he wants to do nothing but just feast on our quarterback.
And he had a sack already up to that point.
Yes. So, they ran Kittle right at him, and Kittle just settled his feet like he was there to block Hassan Reddick. And Reddick's eyes just get big. Like, I got this tight end dragging across the formation to block me, and then we'll leak out, and we'll clear everybody else out. And we'll know that side of the field is going to be wide open. There's not going to be anybody there. And it's exactly what happened. But they were like messing with Hassan Reddick on the play.
Yep. They did all game, and they had a lot of success here. I want to ask you this, because you've been in the media game for a long time. Mm-hmm. And the rhetoric around Brock Purdy, and I don't pay attention to the national naysayers because I honestly don't even care. Right. I feel like I watch the games. I value my opinion. I value his opinion. But there's a lot of narratives. Well, we have to see him come back, or we have to see him. Right. And I grew up in the 90s with the Niners where they're just blowing everybody out. Yeah. It was like, well, who cares about coming back when you're dropping 30 by halftime? You're dropping 20 by halftime.
Well, who's trying to put themselves in a 14-point hole?
Right. Who wants to come back and say, hey, fourth quarter, let's see here. And then the whole thing about where, not only coming back in a game, but he's a quote-unquote system quarterback.
Yeah.
Everybody's playing in the system, Baldy.
Yeah, that's just, there's certain cliches that just get tossed around.
Well, why is it changed? Because it's changed over time, especially since the Twitter and social media era.
Well, okay, so let's just look at the top quarterbacks in the league right now. Tua is at the top of the charts. Is he just a product of the system? Like, yes, it helps that you have Tyreek Hill.
Right.
But he's playing quarterback. Like, he's not getting hit this year because he's getting rid of the ball so quickly. But he's also seeing things so much quicker. So if you just go through the list of all of the guys, like, is Lamar Jackson playing in a system? Like, he's still running the ball.
Right.
Like, he's, short passes, long runs. That's what Todd Monken's doing. Like, everybody's got an offensive philosophy. But, I hear people saying, well, if you put, if you put Mac Jones in this system, he'd be successful. All right. I don't believe it.
Why don't you believe that? Because I do hear that a lot, and it kind of drives me crazy.
Because I don't think he sees the field like the way that Brock Purdy sees the field.
Right.
And I don't think he can get from his second read to his third read the way Brock Purdy does. Like, he's reading this stuff on his second step.
You know what it reminds me of? And you step in and tell me if I'm right or wrong, but, like, I hate saying it. This guy's a Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest.
Right.
The way he sees the field reminds me a lot of how Drew Brees processed the field, where it was like boom, 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 boom. Like, he knew where everyone was on every play, and based off the initial 1 or 2 steps as he's dropping back, he's already like, oh, that's not there, but I'm setting it up and I'm going to go there. Like that third down play to Kittle, he knew, boom, that's not there. I'm going to come all the way across and I'm going to bang Kittle on a 3rd and 3.
Yeah, he did. But he also reset his feet the way Drew Brees would always reset his feet when he would come back to the other side. So he looked one, and Ayuk is face diving into the field. He tripped, so he's looking to the right side. McCaffrey's doubled, and he comes all the way back over to the left. So, there's certain IQ tests out there that test your spatial relations. Right. Huh. So they show you a picture, and then you're supposed to recreate what you saw in the picture. And how many red dots were in the picture.
Right.
And there's ways to kind of test your spatial relations in regard to your IQ. And I just think like there's certain tests that I think like IQ test isn't playing football.
No. Right.
But there is things I think that you can measure in a player in that regard that can say he's better than this guy.
Yeah.
And now let's just see if it plays out. There's always a control study. Like, let's give everybody this test. Let's see how they score, and let's just see if that carries over.
So how does a guy like that fall to the last round and the last pick? Because this is like Brady goes to the 6th round, all these quarterbacks taking above him, and I remember Jim Druckenmiller and Gio Carmazzi and all these guys. Like, what is going on here? How does Brock Purdy fall to the 7th round in the last pick of the NFL draft?
Yeah, well, I think they're looking at all the wrong things. Because the college game is so much different than the pro game.
It's a lot different.
Like, literally everybody. So at Iowa State, they've got a defensive coordinator named John Haycock, and he came up with this 3-3 defense because Iowa State just didn't have the manpower that Oklahoma had, or the depth, or that
like
TCU
that 3-3-5 that West Virginia used to run back in the day.
Well, he came up with this formula, and literally everybody copied it. Everybody plays it in the Big 12. Nobody lines up in a 4-man front.
Really?
No, everybody plays basically the same defense. In fact, I remember the year that Steve Spagnuolo was out of football. Like, he would come over. He was from his wife lived in Philadelphia, and he was living there, so he had a house there. So he would come over to NFL Films. Like, every Monday, he'd come up into my room, whatever, and all we wanted to do was study college tape because he thought everything from college was going to come to the NFL. Mm-hmm. So he was studying that defense in large part. And so, some people use a little package of that in the NFL, but it's not a mainstay defense. But anyways, so you're at Iowa State and you're playing, you're playing TCU. Well, they're playing the same defense. Gary Patterson's playing the same defense. Matt Rule's playing the defense in Baylor. So, like, you're spatially seeing kind of the same look every week. So it's not the NFL. It's not going to get up against Kansas City. It's not going to Philadelphia with this. It's a different game. And so you have to project. Almost every position you have to project. And it's just people just get caught up in these projections. And he just throws bubble screens. He just he doesn't have to go to third progression.
Right.
You just you throw it to you spread them out and you throw it to this guy in space.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, like, I'm over at the Pac-12 champion. I don't pretend to be the college honk that some of these. I'm not Joel Klatt, but like you watch the game, Oregon versus Washington, and I could tell right away, Bo Nix does not see the field. Right. And if you take away all the smoke screens and all that stuff, he really doesn't complete a lot of passes downfield. And so you have all these hollow yards and all these chunks. And I was listening to one of these podcasts and they were saying, when you're evaluating these quarterbacks coming out of college, specifically Ohio State, and why I think a lot of people missed on C.J. Stroud is that they're all he does is the slants and the screens. Well, what the Texans did was they took away all the short yardage stuff and just look at when he had to drop back, and that's what sold them on C.J. Stroud.
Well, that and then Ohio State, like almost like Alabama, like they have the reputation of not producing quarterbacks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so then you go, okay, well, he's got Marvin Harrison, and he's got Chris Olave, and he's got Garrett Wilson. He's just throwing to first-round draft picks.
Right.
Like, that's, anybody could complete passes. And so they're looking at the completion percentage, and then he didn't move, and he didn't scramble outside of going up against Georgia in the championship game. So, they don't really know how to evaluate. They don't really know what they're looking at.